Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is the Comics Today show, a show that we do on Wednesday, which gives us an opportunity to basically celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day, and it is also Webhead Wednesday. Just shout out to all those Spider-Man fans that are out there. Shout out to all those people that also were able to make it to their LCS today to spread a little love in terms of spending some cash to pick up some books. And we are going to go to the chat here in a hot second to see what books you all may have picked up, because after all, this is a celebration of New Comic Book Day, and what better way to celebrate than to highlight the books that folks actually picked up. And certainly if you are in the live stream and you picked up some books and you read something that was really good that we should put on the top of our stack, let us know that as well. As a reminder, this live stream that you are potentially watching right now or listening to right now will also be rebroadcast on the podcast. And it doesn't matter which podcasting platform you choose to listen to. If you search for Regie Collects, you can probably find some episodes and take some Regie on the go. And in advance of today, I want to say, in advance of the show getting started, I want to say thanks to all of my guests that are going to join me today, because we are going to spend some time talking about morality issues. And there's a big question as to whether morality even belongs in the hobby of comic book collecting. For some folks, it's like, hey, every man, woman, child for themselves when it comes to this hobby, and others choose to apply a little bit of some morality type of things to what they do, in terms of their interactions with people when they're buying, when they're selling. But over the course of this show, we are going to talk to a couple of guests about some different moral issues, moral dilemmas that they may have encountered. And I want to understand, have they seen them? Have they heard them? How have they navigated through them? Because these are challenges that I think we all potentially face if we are buying and selling comics, if we're dealing with other people, if we're socializing with them on social media. We encounter all kinds of moral dilemmas. And I want to take a little time to kind of explore that. And I will tell you this. This topic was not my idea. This topic was actually brought to me by someone like a week ago, and I did not like the idea. I did not like the idea at all when the person initially brought it to me. But I noodled it over a couple of days. It popped into my head finally how to maybe talk about it, and then I was on board. And so I cannot remember who that person was just because of the number of messages that I get from people. But shout out to that person for planting the seed and allowing that seed to germinate and now to come to life in the form of this live stream that we're doing right now. And if you did indeed plant that seed, let me know that in the comment section so that I can thank you properly. So with that, I am actually going to go to the chat here to see what it is that folks may have picked up. Saw, who is that? Chris says, I grabbed the new Spawn. There you go. Goose Fang, look who made a live stream. That's what's up. The covers look dope. I'm saying, I think Chris is saying for the Spawn, so he grabbed them all. That's what's up. I see DC on the wall. DC is indeed on the wall and has been now for a couple of weeks. DC has been representing. So I think that is a good thing for certain. Scrolling through some of the comments here, my man Joe picked up Dark Blood 3. Blue and Gold 3, and the Superman Son of Kal-El issue number 4. That's what's up. Rush, my Canadian brother, how you doing? He picked up Gunslinger Spawn and Gun Honey 1. There is definitely a theme there, my friend, with the books that you're picking up. He picked up the second print, multiple covers. That's what's up. Milt, how you doing, my man? It is good to see you. Picked up Slipcase hardback of Something is Killing the Children issues 1 through 13, AWA's Not All Robots 3. I've been reading that issue, or that title, Not All Robots, and it's actually pretty interesting. It is an interesting read. I will tell you that. I'm not sure, Milt, if you're the one that turned me on to that, but I did read it. I did not make it to the comic shop today. I will tell you, I worked pretty late today, and but something did show up at the house. I think it's massive. That is not an encyclopedia, people. This is the complete compendium of Outcast. This was sent to me by the folks over at Skybound. I don't know that I've ever seen a graphic novel of this of this magnitude. This thing is huge, man. The box showed up and I was like, what is this dead body in here? I thought it was a case of bricks. I'm trying to see if I can see the page count. I can't even, there's no pages in here. This thing is massive though. Shout out to the folks at Skybound for hooking me up with this thing. Once upon a time, I think I actually had the first couple of issues of Outcast, but ended up letting them get away from me a couple of years ago. I ended up selling them off to somebody. I can't remember even how much money I made from it, but shout out to those guys. So I try to always be respectful. I don't always get there though. I will tell you that sometimes I'm a little feisty. I haven't eaten or I haven't had enough coffee or enough sleep and I get feisty in those comments. Sometimes I have to go back and edit myself. Sometimes I go back and adjust my tone and throw a smiley face in there because this is all comics. It's all comics. It's never too crazy. Never too crazy. Scrolling through, seeing what else you guys may have picked up. I am behind. Hold on. Bear with me, people. Bear with me. Steve says most of the Image books have been delayed. He's saying Richard is basically saying the same thing. Off-White Tim, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you. He says only have Thor on the pull list, looking to expand. That is not a bad book to have on the list, my friend. Not a bad book. Nocterra on the hey. The struggle, Natasha. The struggle for me, which cover did I put on the wall? Because I love them all. There are some really awesome covers for a Nocterra. So I went ahead and went with that one. I think I have like 3 or 4 different versions of that one alone, just because I think it's a dope cover. But a lot of those books up there, man, are books that I've read, that I've thoroughly enjoyed. It was a little bit of a hard one for me to select the books for this wall, just because there's a lot of really good horror books out there right now. And I will tell you, I just finished reading 9 horror books. Just finished reading 9 horror books from Second Sight Publishing. I had a conversation with the CEO over there the other day, and he hooked me up with some digital copies of their horror comics. So I went ahead and read them, and I think I may do a video on it. So stay tuned for that, because technically, it's still Halloween. So I may end up doing it in time for that. What is that? Chris says, let me know if you're getting that DC versus Vampires. I don't know that title, my dude. You have me at a loss for that one. My man L. Smith, how you doing? Kevin says he picked up Black issue number 1. L. Smith, Batman 115, Black Man. Hey, I started reading Black Manta issue number 1, and it's pretty good. It's like a limited series, right? 1 through 6 or something like that. I may have to start buying this. I was talking to Squirrel Madness the other day, who got me thinking about Black Manta. Catwoman 36, Death of Doctor Strange, issue number 2, Gun Honey 2, Nubia, a couple of other books here. L. Smith never lets me down. He has a robust list every single week. That's what's up. Steven says he's going to the comic shop after parent-teacher conferences tonight, picking up some Thor, Batman, Nightwing, Flash. That's a lot of DC books, bro. I'm gonna just stop reading that list. Teasing, so teasing. Oh my goodness. So we are going to talk about some morality issues here. And there's a little bit of a funny comment here. It says, be a saint on social media, but a devil on eBay. That is the rule. Hey, the thing about morality and morality issues is I don't know if you can have blanket statements for this stuff. Part of it, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, part of it is that it feels like it has to be on a case-by-case basis sometimes. I don't know. That's at least where my head is at the moment. Some of my guests that are on the show tonight may actually change my opinion of that. 2021 New Age has picked up Batman 115, Batman Catwoman issue number 8, Batman Secret Files, Eat the Rich 3 is out. Gun Honey. You guys are reading this Gun Honey. I've never even heard of it. I'm thankful for you guys. I'm gonna be honest with you, because there's so many titles I can't keep up, but thankfully you guys keep me in the know with a lot of this stuff, or you just like spending my money. I don't know which one it is. My LCS didn't get any of the Spawn titles this week. Yeah, we just heard that there is a little bit of delay with some of those titles. Are those still distributed by Diamond? Scrolling through some of the comments here. It is. For those that didn't see, that came in a little late, here is my new Bible. This is the Outcast complete compendium from Skybound. They sent this over to me, and this thing, man, that's a lot of pages right there. That is a lot of reading. Yeah, it's a lot of reading. I don't know what to do with that, but shout out to those guys, man, for constantly sending me some good stuff. So anyone know how many ASM covers are coming out, man? Probably way too many. Scrolling through, Bradley, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you. Reggie out here catching different types of David, how you doing, brother? Welcome to the live stream. All right, so it looks like my guests are starting to assemble in the green room here. So we are going to keep this thing moving forward. Again, shout out to all those people that were able to make it to their LCSs and support the local comic shops. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we are going to take some time to talk about morality and whether morality actually has a role to play in comics, right? Does it have a role to play when we're dealing with one another's as buyers and sellers, when we're going to comic shops, when we're picking up books at antique stores, when we're on social media? Does morality play a role, or is it every man, woman, and child for themselves? And so I've invited a couple of guests on the show that are going to spend a little time with me talking about different moral issues, different moral dilemmas that they may have encountered, ones that they may have heard about. And I want to kind of talk through some of this stuff. Now, what I will say to you is I don't want any of my guests to be painted as good or bad, no matter what they say. We don't want to paint them as good or bad people. We are going to explore some dilemmas, and sometimes in your mind they will make a right choice and sometimes a wrong choice. They are not good or bad. These are just things that we are doing to continue improving the health of the comic book community. And sometimes we have to talk through some of these things that are maybe difficult, maybe tough to talk about, maybe make us a little uncomfortable, but I think that it's important to do so. And so the very first guest that I actually want to bring on the show is my good buddy, Alan, Climbing Comics. It is good to see you, my man.
Hey, how's it going, Reg?
It is going well, my friend. It is good to see you. I am sorry that I am going to miss you at GarageCon this year.
Yes.
Feeling that you are not going to fly from California to come hang out with me. You've been to every GarageCon that I've had, so you will definitely be missed this year.
Definitely, definitely. If you send over a ticket, I'll be on my way.
That's not going to happen. But hey, you have to take a shot on goal. I respect you taking a shot on goal.
Yeah, never hurts to ask.
It doesn't. You could either get a yes or a no. You know, it could go either way. But Alan, when I first reached out to you to talk about this topic of morality in comics, I am curious what immediately went through your head as I was like, hey, here's the theme. What do you think? Like, what popped in?
You know, it's funny because so you messaged me, but I read it late last night, but I was actually in the middle of reading some comics myself. So the first thing that came up, obviously with morality, was, and it came from you, is Spider-Man, right?
Mm.
The with with great power comes great responsibility kind of quote, right? Because, and I think it's one of the big topics that permeates throughout all different types of characters, and this is kind of why we like certain characters that have to deal with these moral type issues, and that's kind of the stories that I've kind of been reading as well. So Spider-Man was the first thing that came to mind.
Hey, there are worse things that could have come to your mind, right? So I'm
Yeah.
glad that it was indeed Spider-Man. But in that vein, do you think that there is a role for morality when it comes to comic book collecting? I'm not necessarily talking about in comics themselves, but I'm talking about in the comic book collecting, how we interact with one another. Is there a role to play, or is in your mind it's like every man for themselves?
Honestly, I think it's actually a huge role, especially with the community that we're dealing with, because I feel like for us, we're trying to like build a community where we collect comic books and talk about comic books with other people that also share that hobby. I know there might be some, like you mentioned, bad actors out there that are only trying to make a buck, trying to like take advantage of people who might not know what they have. But I think when it comes to long-term comic collecting, morality does always pop its head everywhere, every time like you're trying to do something in comics. So I think it definitely is it's something that, at least for me, I don't throw out the door when I go
I
into
think you
comic
made
books.
a really important distinction there, right? You drew a line, if you will, between those people that are part of the community and those people that are like community adjacent, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know what label we want to put on those people, right? Because you can call them speculators or flippers. I don't know. I think that there's members of the comic book community that are that as well. So I'm hesitant to use that, right? But it's like those people, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but those people that are here for the betterment of the hobby tend to maybe have a little more morality in their decision making, unlike those that are like, I'm just here for some cash. I don't really care about this community. Would you agree with that? Would you modify anything there?
I agree with it 90%, but I totally think that morality in itself, you're living in the gray,
Mm,
right? There's no for example, black or white, because I know like flipping books and trying to, like, for example, our LCS, they're not selling us books that are face value. They're also trying to make money to stay in business. So
mm.
I understand that's definitely a gray spot for everyone, even in collecting. Because I know you, I know other friends who sell comic books online. You're not doing it for just as like kind of just giving away books. You're
Yeah.
trying to fund the hobby itself and make sure it kind of keeps the wheels going.
Yep. I mean, the comics that I sell don't put food on the table, but they do go into books, right? And
Yeah.
so there has to be a profit margin there. So I think that's a legit point. I'm curious. You've been back into the hobby for a while now, and I
Mhm.
know exactly where you live in the Bay Area. Not down to the address. I mean, that's just creepy. But I'm curious whether you have struggled with any morality issues with your interactions over the last couple of years. And if so, paint that picture of what the situation was and how you navigated through that moral dilemma that you were faced with.
Yeah. So there's a couple more dilemmas that kind of I feel like are not completely ends of the spectrum, but we're very much so in the gray. And so one example is that, like, I know for like I bought a couple of comics online, right?
Mm,
So I for some reason I knew like there's a final order cutoff. I ordered like maybe 5 books from this one website. They sent me my books and I got 6 books. One
mm,
of them I didn't order. So at that point, I looked at the book. I was like, "Oh, cool! This is a maybe something that I wanted. This isn't like a grail or anything like that." But I said, "Hey, okay, should I keep this book? Should I send it back?" So I kind of did like the quick mental calculation. It costs more to send this book back, and it would cost more than the value of the comic book itself. I might be painted as like, the bad actor here, but I ended up keeping the book, right? And I was like, "All right, thanks for the 250."
yeah. And I mean, because mistakes happen, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, on one hand, you're like, cool, free book, right? I'm going to count my blessings while I have them. But then on the other side, there's that, well, I didn't pay for it, so maybe I should give it back. But then you kind of balanced it a little bit with the cost of it, right? I mean, let's be honest,
Yeah.
time is money. It would have cost you a lot of time, if you will, to reach back out to them and say, hey, here's what I ordered. You sent this extra book. What do you want to do with it? Then for them to reply back to you, then for you to have to make, like, there's a lot of, there's a lot
Mhm.
involved in that. So again, I don't think that you're a bad person for that. I probably would have kept the daggone book for myself, even if it was a grail. But that's what I'm saying. To your point, there's a little bit of like this gray area. Like, I don't know if anybody in this room would call you a bad person for that. But my thought here is that you probably felt a certain way about that and you paused
Mm.
for a moment before you made that decision. Is that fair to say?
That's completely fair to say. That's why I took the time to do that assessment to see, like, weigh the pros and cons of each.
Now, do you think it would have been easier for you to make the decision had it been on the spectrums versus in the middle? Is it easier to be like, yeah, this is just wrong versus that gray area where it's like, nobody actually got hurt here and there's no real, So I want to pause there for that thought.
Yeah, so if all right, this maybe didn't happen to me, but if we
Mhm.
take this example and expand on it, let's say I bought something from eBay. Someone who does a lot of sales and always sells a bunch of Grails or Silver Age books, and he sends me the wrong book, and it is like something that's worth more value. At that point, I will definitely reach out back to the seller and say, "Hey, you sent me this book because I'm assuming someone else had bought that book and you just swapped our books for some reason. So I think at that point I would reach out.
And I can tell you, brother, I've done that. I've done it once. I sent out like a big book to one person. And I am very thankful that that person had a moral compass to be like, hey, I did not order this book, you know, and they actually, if I remember correctly, they sent it on to the other person and the other person sent them their book. And I was like super thankful that it was like two good people that were like, hey, let's just make it right. Because that could have gone very wrong for me. But if you are tuning in right now, we are spending some time talking about moral dilemmas that we as comic book collectors may encounter as we are buying and selling comics, as we are interacting with members of the community, and even those outside of the community. And I'm joined right now by Alan, Climbing Comics, and he just told us a couple of stories here about every time.
Sorry, I have to throw it in there.
Every time. I was on a roll too, but hey, whatever, brother. But no, Alan, I definitely appreciate you coming on. So here's another question for you.
Yeah.
Here's another question. You're out there hunting in the Bay Area, right? You're in comic shops. We used to be in some of the same shops, maybe not at the same time, but you used to hit some of the same shops that I used to hit. So I know all the shop owners out there. But let's say you're going through over, let's not say Crush, because everybody likes Josh, right? But let's say you're in a different comic shop, right? You're in a different comic shop and you find in the bins a comic that is well below FMV. Do you buy that comic at the price that is on that book, or do you tell that shop owner who you may or may not like that book is mispriced? I mean, this is real talk. This is stuff we can actually encounter. What is your thought there?
So this actually happened to me. So this wasn't a a real big Grail book, but this was a a ratio incentive book, right? So I sat there, like I walked in, they gave me my stack of books from my subscription, and I'm just walking around looking at new books, and I'm like looking through the ones that I got. I'm like, wait, what is this book? Because I remember seeing it on like Key Collector or something like that. And I was like, and I looked at the price. I was like, oh, it's like kind of like priced as what the book is cost, like $350. And at that point, that moral compass kind of came on, right? I was like, oh. So I looked and I was like, on one side is the owner and the other side is the cashier person who, is just there, just trying to ring people up and just get people through. And I was like, all right, so I could go to the cashier and just leave, or I could go to the owner and tell him what I found. And like, I sat for a good 10 seconds thinking about what I got to do.
10 seconds or 10 minutes? Be honest. Come on now. Come on.
10 times 10 seconds. So at that point, I've been going to the same shop for probably a year at this point. So I was like, okay, let me just do the right deed and see what happens. So I walk over to the shop owner. I say, hey, this is a 1 in 50 that you gave me, but it's priced for $350. I do want this book. What can we do about this? So he ended up giving me the book at lower than fair market value. And I was super happy to bring it home.
Yep.
But what I realized is just that action kind of built the rapport that I had and built that trust that I was starting to build with that shop owner.
Yep.
So each time a ratio variant comes out, I'll call him and he's like, oh, it's you? Okay, I got you. Don't worry about it. And then so I think, just knowing that the moral compass and building that relationship with someone and knowing that you'll go out of your way to tell the truth about something, I actually gained something from that, a long-term gain from that.
You said two interesting things. Well, you said one interesting thing, and then I had a little bit of an epiphany based upon something else that you said. I've been into a lot of shops across the country, and I've seen a lot of gruff comic shop owners. And I've seen those comic shop owners that when you go in, they're like, we don't have any keys. Like they'll say stuff like that to you. And it's almost like they've become jaded because maybe they feel like people have taken advantage of them. Do you think that this shop owner that you're talking about now was receptive to you because of your honesty? And on the same other side, do you think that maybe some have become jaded because people have taken advantage of them or try to take advantage of them? So they're always on guard of, we don't have any keys. We don't have that. You know,
Yeah.
let me pause for your thoughts there.
Yeah, I think where I live currently, it's and you know this, like we live in a very lucky place where we have a big community of knowledgeable shop owners and that are very open to talking to customers
Yep.
and making sure that customers get the bang for their buck, right?
Yep.
So he wasn't as jaded. I know like that shop owner might be jaded in general, but he's not going to let that take be put in the forefront of him making sure that his relationship with me
Mm.
is also good, because it's a two-way street, right? Because of course I know there are some shop owners that are jaded in that way, and I've only gone to their shop once.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you know that's why I only really go to a couple of shops now, and I
I
think
had a
that's
shop
where you're
owner
going.
yell at me once, and I was like, that's it. I'm
Mm-mm,
out. You
mm-mm.
know, but
Yeah.
one of the other interesting things that you said is that by this time you had been going to that shop for like a year. Let's say it was
Yeah.
a new shop. It's a new shop. Would you have and again, I'm not gonna call you a bad person. I'm just curious. These are moral dilemmas. You roll into a shop you've never been to before on vacation, on a trip, right? When you're going to go climb somewhere, you roll in there. Same ratio variant, 350 versus $100. What do you do?
Ooh. Ooh, you are
You
both an
volun
enabler and you're just
you
hanging that bait
volunteer for
right there.
this. You volunteer for this. All right, I won't
Um,
force you to answer that one if you
no,
don't
no,
want
no,
to.
but honestly, I think I'll say this, okay? So, you know, kind of growing up with a very moral compass driven family,
Mm,
one of the quotes that always sticks to my head, and one of the things that my parents said to me, it's not what you do when people are watching, it's what you do when people aren't watching. So I want to be that type of person that has a good moral compass. So I'll force myself to, or I guess the guilt will force myself to ask that question before I do it. So
yeah.
if I were in a new place, I would bring it up. I would bite the bullet. I bring it up. I probably wouldn't buy the book. I just here, just take the book.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
get the normal cover.
I respect it. I respect it. And then the moral compass that is imposed by family, I definitely get that. That resonates with me. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
know where you're coming from. This next one, I'll kind of ask you here, right? So this one is I don't know, but you're on Craigslist. Let's say you're searching Craigslist and you find an awesome comic on Craigslist that is listed for, let's say, $500, which is slightly below FMV, right? So it's somewhat priced appropriately for a raw book. But you know that if you were to get that book based upon the photos, based upon your ability to grade, and I see your post on Instagram, so I know you know how to grade, right? Do a dirty
Mhm.
grade. You know that if you sent that book in to be graded, it's a $2,500 book. What do you do there? What do you do there? Do you buy that book at 500? Because again, it's only slightly below FMV for a raw book. Or do you tell that person, hey, if you grade this book, it's a $2,500 book?
For me, like if I buy off of Craigslist, I will wait. I'll give you the answer first, and I'll give the explanation after.
Okay, good, good.
Yes, I would buy the book. I would buy the book, but I would tell the person, "Hey, I'm buying this book. I know you might not know what grading or thing or like you know slabbing and all of this is." Yeah, interrogation. Yeah. I would buy the book, but you know I would say, "Hey, I know this is worth a little bit more than this. Can I throw in something or buy something else
Mm,
for and like bring up that price?"
mm,
You know,
that
I would not pay $2,500 for it. But because I'm offering knowledge, I think that in the long term, this person will do the research on the further books.
yep.
And, you know, maybe that's my payment for, you know, my exchange, right? It's somewhat equivalent in the long term, but
I
yeah.
did not know how you were going to answer that one. I'm gonna be honest with you because this actually happened to me. Right there
Ooh.
was a Batman first appearance of Harley Quinn on OfferUp. Not maybe a year before I left Cali, $500. I was on that book and I was like, I'm getting this book right here because I knew what it could be. And I called the person up. I said, hey, I'm in the car. Can I come by and get this book right now? And they were like, yeah, well, some other people have expressed interest and they're willing to pay, I think it was like $1,500 or something for it. And I was like, never mind. Right now it's not really a smoking deal. Before it was a
Yeah.
deal. So I don't, I had not gone so far as to say that I would have given them more for it. It's interesting that you went there. Maybe I would have. I don't know that I would have naturally gone there because, again, I felt like it was appropriately priced, but maybe your moral compass is better than mine. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. One last question, Alan, before I let you go and move on to my next guest here. You know, in the past, we've spoken about shill bidding. Bidding, right? You've been on the show. Me, you, and Doug had a whole conversation about that. You painted a picture. Is it safe to say that shill bidding is definitely a moral no? Is it? Can we make that blanket statement that artificially driving up the price for people is just wrong? Can we say that?
Yes, we can. Definitely. I think it's very well, shill bidding and eBay bidding, I think it's easy to lose your moral compass when something is not necessarily right in front of you. And if there's layers of, services like eBay and just putting in a number and clicking OK, you're not really feeling like you're hurting anyone when you're making this bid, but you don't see the after effects that he has, right? So I think because we know the back end of shill bidding and those that are doing shill bidding only see the front end maybe, and they're only seeing the profits. I would say that it definitely is a no-no.
That was very interesting. Again, I don't know how you're going to answer these questions, so I'm always curious. Like, well, what are they going to do if I ask them that? That's actually really insightful, right? Because what I heard you say, and I'm going to flip it a little bit. You didn't necessarily say that they were bad. Maybe what they're doing is bad, but they're not necessarily thinking about it because they're not seeing the impact of that action on an actual person. Unlike I'm going to give you $1 for this book face to face that I know is worth $1,000. Like, that's legit. You're in somebody's face versus typing in a couple of keys. I think that's an important distinction that you just made there. That, again, I don't know that I fully thought about prior to asking you that question. So glad that I did.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's like I like staying on my toes when you ask me.
Hey, well, if you're going to climb, you better stay on your toes. So
Exactly.
Alan, as I let you go here, brother, where can people get a hold of you should they choose to engage with you on the social media?
Yeah, thanks, Reg. So on Instagram, you guys can find me at climbing comics 452, and you could find my YouTube channel, Climbing Comics.
I just can't help myself. I don't know if it's the hand motion or the face expression that you make. It just makes me laugh every time.
We'll
But
go climbing sometime. We'll go
no,
climbing.
brother, I'm not going climbing. No, I'm not. You're not going to belay me down from anything. It's not going to happen. All right. But thank you for coming on the show. As always, brother, I appreciate your perspective.
Thank you so much.
All right. So right now we are going to have a first time guest on the show. This guy rolled out this 60 grails and 60 months thing just the other day. I watched it. I was like, you know what? Let's get some new blood on the show. So I want to welcome to the show right now, Geek Aficionado, somebody that you probably have seen in the chat before. Geek, welcome to the channel.
Hey, Reggie. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure, my friend. And shout out to Squirrel Madness for dropping the super chat in there. I am going to give you credit for that. Or no, technically I can give it to Alan because Alan has been the insightful one up until this point. So let's see whether you earn me a super chat. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. It's now on. So you were behind the scenes for a while there.
Yes.
And I'm curious whether there was anything that Alan said over the course of me talking with him, technically my interrogation, as someone calls it, that you want to piggyback on. Was there anything interesting that he said that kind of caught your attention?
Yeah, there. The question you had about going to a new shop and whether or not you're gonna offer up the information that this book might be of a higher value. So there's two sides of that. One is, yes, how do they actually handle their variants, right? Like if they have variants on the wall, and they're not paying attention to the fact that maybe they missed this one, sure, I get that. But there's other shops that they order, they'll order, through a certain number of books, and as they get the variants in, they don't really care. And I've been to a number of shops that just, they'll throw them out on the rack with everything else because they're not trying to make that extra money off of it because they didn't order up to get that specific variant, so where that extra money is important to their order structure. So, and then the second thing is depending on whether or not the people who work there are actually, helpful and kind. And, we've all been to those shops where, you just don't like being there, they make you, it's an unpleasant experience.
Yeah, and
I
those
would
are the
say.
shops I try not to go back to be honest with you.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
very
I
much so.
actually messed up. I needed to do something. So bear with me as I do this really, really quickly because I should have done this at the top of the show. I want to go ahead and announce really quickly the winner of the short box giveaway. Short Box does a giveaway here on the channel. And this person, Chris Verde, who I believe is in the chat, has actually won the $100 credit from Shortboxed. And this is a credit where he can actually use it to purchase anything on the site. It goes towards that purchase. So shout out to Shortboxed, who puts me in a position to be able to continue creating content. And congrats to Chris for actually winning this and for commenting on the video in which he entered the contest. So shout out to both of those folks. So, and again, Geek, my apology for that. I should have done it at the beginning of the show. It totally got away from me. So my bad there. Now, with that said, I actually do want to show you an image. I want to show you an image, and I want to get your impression as to whether you believe that this is a moral dilemma. And if so, why? So this is the image right here. It basically says back issue prices will be looked up at the register. Prices may differ from cover price or old sticker price. Some may say that this is a moral dilemma. Some may say that it's wrong. What say ye about this?
You're stepping on my angry button right there. That is my number one largest pet peeve of any retailer.
Why is
You're
that?
there all day. Do the work, man. Sure. If you wanted to say, hey, these bins are based on market value, and we will spend the next 30 minutes looking up every individual issue, that right there, that sign right there, I would turn right around and walk right back out the door.
But is it a moral thing? Is it a moral thing, or is it a laziness thing? That's kind of my question.
I definitely feel that it's a laziness thing. It's it's not putting in the effort in your in your business to make sure that that everything is priced appropriately. I mean, I think that's a really key important thing when you have a business, is making sure that everybody knows, what to expect. Walking up to a bin and going, oh, this book's $3, and then walking up to a register with a stack of books that you have spent time in there going through, making sure that it matches what's in your bank account to be able to spend there, only to have it go up there and somebody go, oh, well, hang on, let me look all these up on eBay to see current market prices. And then the worst thing, going and looking up the buy it now prices that people are asking, rather than actually looking at the sold prices. So now there's an argument to be had. It just creates a bad environment in the shop, and with between the shop owner and the customers. From a moral perspective, I would definitely say that I think you're kind of taking advantage of the customer with the fact that you didn't do the due diligence and make sure. And if a book is, this is really to take advantage of the idea that there's a book that just became hot this week that you didn't know about and you don't want to follow, which falls to the laziness. But also the other side of it is that, have your customers come in and have a good experience. Maybe they got lucky and they found this book, in there. You walk up to the register and you've got 12 copies of that book. Yeah. Right. Maybe there's a different story to be, a conversation to be had on that.
Or maybe it's what happened to Alan. It just was put into his bin, and it was his lucky day, and he was sort of rewarded for that luck, and I can tell you for a fact that there are shops in California that do exactly that. Now, what's funny is I had this idea of pulling an image like that. I went to one of my buddies in California's page to pull that image because I know that he had posted about that several times.
I remember seeing that, yeah.
And as I went to go crop it and cut, his information out, I saw a comment from you, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. I was like, this is a perfect thing for me to talk with him about, because it does have a lot of laziness in there. And it also has this, to your point, I'm not going to invest. I'm going to let this other person come in here, do the hard work of finding those good books, bring them to me. Then I'm going to mark them up, and either they're going to buy it or they won't, but I'm going to sell it to somebody else. So that's where I struggle with this one. Is it a moral thing, or is it just bad business? I don't exactly know. It makes me feel a certain kind of way. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I definitely feel it's bad business and just kind of makes you crappy.
Yes, yes. So to that point, though, do you think that morality is one of those blanket kind of statement type of things, or in your mind, is it more of a case by case? You know, you have to look at the situation and you have to evaluate it. I want to pause to see what your thoughts are on that.
I feel that that's definitely a little bit of both. I mean, morality can be explained as just, a difference between right and wrong, I mean, and if you try to live your life, by being a person who knows the difference between right and wrong and tries to always act on the right side of it, sure. I mean, you can possibly do something that, could be considered, in the wrong in one person's opinion, but you feel it's right based on your experience. And of course, that breaks into a much wider, broader conversation. But yeah, I hope I'm answering that effectively. But
You are?
yeah.
You are. So for those people that are coming in a little late, we are spending some time talking about moral dilemmas that we as comic book collectors may actually encounter as we buy and sell comics and deal with people in the community. I am sitting down with Geek Aficionado having a conversation about moral, dilemmas that he may have encountered. Now, you hit on something earlier when you said 12 issues of something. What readily comes to my mind as you make that statement is basically what has happened maybe over the last 24 months, if not longer, of speculation and flipping and people rolling into shops, buying every single copy of a book, trying to buy it, and comic shops putting limits in place to prevent people from buying up all the copies. Is that a moral thing for those people that are buying up the 12 copies, or is it just good business because they can take that $3 book and turn it into $20 per copy? Is that a moral thing or is that a business thing?
I'd say it's both sides of the coin. As a shop owner, if you're aware that a book is hot, or somebody walks in, Wednesday morning and grabs every copy of a book off the shelf and puts it down, let's say that Batman Urban Legends 6, right? Because it's got that great canary cover that I wanted that I can't get anymore because it's like $100.
Oh, you can get it. You just have to pay $100.
If I want no thanks. It's not that good. I can download the image. But having somebody walk up to the counter with every copy that's on the rack and the store owner allowing that, okay, that's bad business on the store owner not making sure that he's got enough available. He should be knowledgeable to know that, hey, I put out 8 copies. He walked up with 8 copies. Maybe I'm going to take a breath and look at, what's going on with this and go, okay, you know what? I need to make sure that there's some for everybody else who's going to come in today. So I'm going to limit this to 2, and then definitely look into what's going on there. And there's a follow-up comment I want to make on this that I'm going to pose to a question to you, sir.
Oh, well, hey, I can ask questions all night. Do you want to ask yours and I'll pause on my next? Because I have follow-on questions to what you just said. So
so let me finish that. But the other side of that is that, it's kind of rude to walk into a store and grab every copy, because you want to take advantage of that business, proposition. I get that, but be respectful to your other collectors and take what you can get, right? And maybe roll on to the next store and pick up a couple copies there, or call ahead. Don't be a glutton. And take that. But the question I was going to ask you is, how do you feel about? Oh, sorry. Now the question just kind of blew past. So you know what? Go ahead and move on.
It happens, brother. That's why I have notes, because you sometimes lose yourself in the question. But that was the next part of what I was going to ask you is I think that, to your point, people should leave something behind for other people. Like, don't take it all, right? Get a couple of copies, maybe go to another shop, maybe get a couple of copies there. But what you will see, and I think the reason that shop owners started doing this is that people were hitting a shop and then going to the next shop and then the next shop and then the next shop and buying up all the books. Now, on the other side of that, there are those shop owners that will have that hot book, know that it's hot.
And this was the question I was going to ask. It just came to me right before you started. I was like, oh yeah.
Off the
marking
floor.
up that brand new book that hasn't even come out yet to like $20 or whatever the market rate
is that your question to me? I'll allow you to pose the question to me and I'll wait for it. Go ahead.
Yeah. How do you feel about shop owners that upcharge a book on its release day beyond its sticker price?
I struggle with it. I do. I struggle with it. And I struggle with it because I understand why the shop owner is doing it. It goes back to what I just said a few seconds ago about them being a little jaded because people come in and try to clean their stuff out and they make a certain amount. These people are trying to make a lot more than the shop owner for the exact same product. So I understand it. But at the same time, I think the shop owner has to do what's right for his or her customer base. And you might get me for $5 today, or you can get me for 500 over a period of time. So you decide how you want to operate. You know what I'm saying? And I've had shop owners that will put books to the side that they know that I'm interested in, or not charge me necessarily the full markup because they know that I'm a fan, right, of a certain book,
Sure.
right? Versus I call in and, hey, the hot book is out. Can I get it? I'll pay market value for that because you know the shop has to stay in business, but I also will not pay crazy prices. Kind of like what Alan said. You know, it's like if it's a $3 book and you want to sell it to me for $6 because you need to make a couple of bucks, no problem. $60, you can keep it. I'm not doing it. You know,
it doesn't make sense to it. I mean, and there's an easy way around that. I mean, you can just reserve a portion of your, you know, whatever you've put out, you know, you intend to put out on the rack. Make sure that your regulars are taken care of. Put a couple out on the rack. When they're gone, they're gone. The next day, then you put them up, you know, or, you know, wait a day or two because, you know, it's a reorder, you know. But the fact of the matter is day one, I don't know. I don't
on
jive
eBay,
with
brother.
that.
It's on eBay.
Yeah. I mean, or just take them out and put them on eBay yourself, you know. You sold out. You had some on the shelf and they were gone.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think that it is a moral thing that many of us can probably relate to. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to like ask the question, because this is what we see. And I don't know if we think about it as a moral thing or a bad business thing, but I know that people are thinking about it. And so I wanted to kind of revisit some of that stuff, you know? So one of the last things that I want to kind of talk to you about here is that I talk a lot about this, that the fact that we are not just collectors, right? We are husbands, we are fathers, we are employees, we are business owners, but occasionally the FOMO will get a hold of us, or that once in a lifetime, if you will, at least in our mind, opportunity comes along and we go all in, right? And we may overspend. We may buy something that we technically cannot afford. And I'm curious whether you have heard about these types of situations where people have backed themselves up trying to buy a big book where they can't pay bills. Is that a moral issue? Is that a moral dilemma if you can't feed your family because you're buying up stuff? I'll pause to hear your thoughts.
So I'm from Vegas. So I'm not I'm not alien to the idea of somebody going all in at the wrong time.
Oh my God. All I can do is picture people pushing the chips to the table, to the center, you know?
So there's I have been versed in the struggles of morality and and poor decision making. I've seen it quite a bit in my time. To that point, I mean, that is something that you definitely wrestle with, you know, being a collector, right? And I'll tell you, this goes back to the Grail run, right? The 60 and 60. I was presented with an opportunity to buy a couple of big books, and it is not something, and this is in the video that's upcoming about how I did it. This is not something that I could even think about going into the money of my family to do this for. And I'm not criticizing or casting any kind of finger pointing on anybody who has done this, because everybody has their money their way. But I knew that if I was going to do it, it had to be funded from what I already had. Now, obviously, we go through and we purchase things at a certain price. And, you know, I mean, I've done segments called Slab City where it's, you know, it's about buying raw and selling slab, because we get that turn on investment, right? We get that increase there. You know, anybody who watches your channel sees that happen all the time with the 100K collection, right? You're sending stuff out to CGC. You want to get the best value you can. And that helps you get other books like your Hulk that you're working on. So I knew that if I did this, I had to go and I had to sell things. I had to part with things that, you know, maybe I didn't want to part with, but I had to make it okay with myself to get the books that I wanted to get. If you're leveraging yourself into a position where your financial security for you and your family is at risk, I urge you to seek counsel. there are numbers that you can call, because that may lead to other behavior that gets you just in that downward spiral.
And that's real talk.
Yeah.
I think about a year after I was back in the hobby and doing YouTube, I spoke to a guy who had a gambling addiction, and he turned his gambling addiction into a comic book addiction. And I ended up doing a video on, are you addicted to comics? And it was inspired by this guy that got himself into a bad situation. And it's unfortunate, but it's like you can take a vice and translate it or transfer it to a different hobby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it can be dangerous. And again, to your point, this is not about saying those are bad people. It's about, hey,
Not at all.
recognize that you may have an issue and try to do something about it, because losing your family or whatever over a comic book, it's just not worth it. In my mind, it's not worth
losing
it.
your security over a want and not a need.
Oof.
There's no math in that.
Oof. So on that note, Geek, I want to thank you, brother, for coming on the channel. I
Thank
thoroughly
you.
enjoyed this interaction. We may have to have you come back, but where can people find you if they are interested in tuning in to you and checking you out on the social media?
Absolutely. I have my own YouTube channel, The Geek Aficionado. I'm also on Instagram at The Geek Aficionado, and you can talk to me anytime. I'm always on, typically. Don't sleep much.
Yeah, you sending me that Hulk one last night. That was not a good move. That's all I'm gonna say to you. That's all I'm gonna say to you, brother. That was a nice Hulk one.
It will be available. So, once it comes back from CGC. So I can be a broker for you.
I might need a poor man's copy, as I tell people. 1.8 to 2.0 poor man's copy. That didn't look like that range. So, but thank you.
We'll see what happens when I'm done with it.
All right, man. I
Thanks a
appreciate
lot.
you, brother. All right. So my last guest that we are going to have on the show as we continue this conversation about moral dilemmas that we encounter as comic book collectors is no stranger to the show. It is my man, Chuck. Chuck, what it do?
Hey, how you doing? Life's good.
It's good to see you, brother. So you were behind the scenes for a while there. I think you were my very first guest that actually popped up. And I'm curious, as you listened to Alan and Geek Aficionado, was there anything that jumped out at you from their comments that you want to piggyback on?
Well, I think, we talk about this community and reputation and how that matters. And you talk about, and I was laughing listening to both of them, because I thought of a scenario that I went through back in the dark ages before we had handheld internet. And, going to one of the local dealers here who had a reputation for jacking up the prices of what he thought hot books were. And I remember going through his back issue bin the week that Men in Black came out. And I was down in his independent books, and he had a billion independent books down there. And I found the entire run of Men in Black, first series, $2.50 each, near mint condition. And I make no apologies. After all the things the stuff that I bought, watching him jack up, Superman $50 to $25, back when $25 was a lot of money, when that was real money. And, I didn't feel, and I'm sorry to say this, my students would probably agree with this, I didn't feel a whole lot of shame walking up there and plopping down $750 for those 3 issues of Men in Black, because he had no idea what Men in Black was.
Yeah.
And, and they were just, 3 random black and white books he had from Marico Books,
I'm going to be honest with you, brother. I probably would have done the same thing. I'm gonna just be honest with you, so you got to do what you got to do. But let me ask you this. So to that point, right? What are your thoughts on those shop owners and those sellers that are essentially trying to capture future value? They're trying to capture future value by jacking up the price. Is it that, or are they jacking up the price to give room for negotiation because everybody wants a deal? Like, is there a moral thing going on with that?
I think if they're willing to negotiate it, there's not a problem with it. What I have found locally, and again, and this gentleman who's no longer selling was one of them, and somebody else we have in town right now who does sell and who is considered a big store, is that they're not really interested in negotiating. They, the guy who owns the current pair of stores right now, he's very upfront. His goal is to make money. It is not to make friends. It is not to make long-term customers.
Mm.
My goal is to make money right now. And if I can convince you to pay, and I remember this was before it jumped up in price, he had Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, first appearance of Jack of Hearts, 7.0, 8.0 condition. It's a hard book to find in the wild, but he had it like 5 times guide price and didn't have a grade on it.
That's crazy.
And I looked at it and I said, okay, man, it's a nice book, but this is not, he said, it's my store. I charge it what I want. He said, you don't have to buy it. And I said, that's true. I don't. And I said, you're right. I don't have to buy it. And I put it back. And, I don't go to that store very often.
Yeah.
And, that's his business model that he's working with. I don't think it's a very intelligent business model long term, but he's been in business for 5 years, so
somebody's buying.
So something's working right, but he's not getting my money.
Or he has a lot of people out there that are catching bricks unnecessarily and potentially realizing after the fact that they've caught a brick and potentially walk away from the hobby because they met somebody that does not care about the hobby. To Alan's point about community versus community adjacent, what are your thoughts there?
You're very right. And, in the LCS, which I go to, gets former customers of his all the time who come in and go, man, you can't believe, or did you hear what, they offered this guy for his back issues? He offered them, barely pennies on a box, and I think that really goes to what a lot of us are talking about here is that, we all try to do the right thing, though we do give into temptation if you get a complete run of Men in Black for nothing. But, your reputation matters. And I mean, you see it on eBay, you see it on Facebook, you see it all these places. You're going to sell some, you're going to do someone dirty, people are going to hear about it.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, man, I spend a lot of time thinking about the things that I do and how I interact with people for that very reason. Because your reputation, in my opinion, it matters. And I don't want anybody being like, Regie cheated me or Regie took advantage of me. I try to go out of my way not to be that guy. That doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes, but I try. And what I heard you say in that answer there was if a shop owner or a broker or a dealer or even a person has some extra value built into the value of their comic, if it's okay if they're willing to use that space for the purpose of negotiation. If they're unwilling to negotiate and it's more like I'm about to screw you, then what I'm hearing, that's when it becomes maybe a not so good type of situation. Is that fair, a way for me to encapsulate that?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And, and you don't know until you interact with the people.
Yep.
And, and part of it may be that I didn't know this. I still don't know this owner very well.
Mm.
So it may be that if he knew me better, he might have been willing to negotiate.
So let me ask you another question about haggling and negotiation. Do you do it?
Not as well as I should.
But you do engage in haggling and negotiation.
I try to, mostly at cons.
Okay.
Now when I'm buying stuff like for my LCS owners known me for 30 years.
Mm.
So, there is some haggling there, but there's also, there are other things going on too. That's part of why he's known me for 30 years. I mean,
right. But in my head, I'm wondering whether haggling could be a moral dilemma, right? And I mean, pushing a seller to the point that they sell you something for maybe less than they should because you put that much pressure on them. Is that like a bad thing? Is there a moral thing there? And maybe it's not a shop owner. Maybe it's a private person that just gets worn down with somebody that is trying to lowball them. Like I've had people come to my house to buy stuff and they're like, I'm selling it for 20 and they'll ask if they can have it for 5. Which is just silly. Or I'll be selling something online and they'll be like, well, can you deliver it to me? Like, no, I can't deliver it to you. It's free. Why would I deliver it to you? But can haggling become a moral dilemma as well?
I think depending on how much pressure you put on them and whether or not you can realize how desperate they are to sell.
Ooh.
I mean, I think, that's a lot of it. If you feel they're really desperate to sell and you are bound and determined to squeeze every, Scottish nickel you can out of them, speaking to my good Scottish ancestry, we like to save money. You know, you're going to squeeze every single drop out of them you can. Yeah, that's bad. It's another thing to understand that, you know, okay, hey, Reggie's willing to talk to me about some prices. We're willing to work on some things. But if you say to me, hey, look, my drop dead level is X, you know, I should have enough respect for you. Hopefully, you know, not go, really, can you do X minus 10? Yeah. No, I already said my drop dead level is X.
Yeah. And I mean, they're to the point about someone's desperation and situation. Like I've had some moral challenges with people that have gotten themselves into tough financial situations that have come to me and offered me their comics to buy. And the price is good, but it's like, should I give them more or should I even buy it? But they need the money, but they don't really want to sell it, but they have to sell it. Like that even creates for me a little bit of a moral dilemma because I don't want to take advantage of people. Like I don't want to be that guy. But can you appreciate what I'm trying to describe there with that type of situation?
Oh, most definitely. And, you know, and that's something you got to be aware of. And again, a lot of that's reading the room and, you know, especially when you're trying to buy collections and you go to like an estate sale or, you know, you get to see, you have someone come up to you and go, hey, look, you know, I just inherited from my dad. I don't know what to do with it. Can you make me an offer? You know, that's where I think you've got to really try to read it and, you know, come to you know, you try to do some of the educating you heard people, you heard Squirrel and others talk about, you know, and at the same time, you know, try to broker a good deal for yourself. Yeah. You know, and
because you do want a good deal. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with a good deal, but it's when I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is when that good deal becomes detrimental to another person that maybe you should have a little pause.
Yeah. Or you just feel guilty about it. I mean, you know, someone comes in with, you know, long boxes of silver books and they don't know what it's worth and you offer them $100. Yeah. And they're in pretty good shape, and they're Silver Age Marvels. You know, I think everybody in the chat will be able to tell you that you can probably get more than $100 for them. You know, especially if there's a decent run of old Avengers or a couple random Spider-Man books in there. Yeah. You know, you could still offer them $500 or $600 and have them be perfectly happy because they never thought they were going to get $600 for the books. Yep. And, you know, and you still walk away with, you know, a deal that has the potential of doing well for you. But it's figuring out what that middle ground is and also what you can afford. I mean,
yeah, that's the other part of it. That's true. That's a legit point. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is it possible to separate the creator from the creation? And what I mean by that is that there is a creator out there that says some negative stuff, that maybe doesn't have the best personality, that maybe is just toxic, but they also create wonderful art. Can you separate the creator from the creation and still enjoy one but not the other?
I think for me, it's very hard. You know, I've been lucky in the area of comics that for the most part, a lot of these people who do things which I consider toxic, I'm not interested in a lot of their work. And so, you know, unless it's like a Silver Age artist who, you know, in their old age or has finally revealed themselves to be, you know, the cranky old man that they may have always been, you know, to me, that's not a major dilemma. And especially if I'm buying it as a back issue, you know, the sunk cost is already there. They got paid for it back in 1968. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, if I had the book, but like I just finished my run about last year of Fat Albert and Cosby Kids because, you know, one of my goals has been to finish runs that I can afford to finish. And that was one of them. And you know, y'all know how much I love cartoon books. Yeah. And, you know, I love that cartoon as a kid and I love those comics, but man, they're hard to look at now for lots of reasons. Yep. And, you know, it was interesting. So I heard my LCS owner was talking about someone who came in and bought some of those books from him, and they were apologizing to the store owner that they were buying these books. And he said, look, he said, you know, I don't care. They're old comic books, you know, but it is hard. And, you know, and I flipped through them once to say it was straight face. I read them. They went into the proper box, and I'm probably not pulling them out again for a while.
Interesting. Again, I asked these questions and I really don't know how you guys are going to answer them, but I did not expect that. But I can understand why that could be a moral dilemma for you. I can completely understand that, given everything that's transpired and everything that has come out about the person behind that comic. I get that, because I just assumed you were going to be like, yes, no problem. I can separate the two. It's art. It's not the person, but I respect that. I respect that answer.
Well, and with new stuff, it's a lot harder because if someone's putting out stuff that I find to be toxic, I don't want to financially reward them. That I have an issue with that. And again, I knock on wood, I've been very fortunate. Unless George Perez has, done something that I don't want to know about. Please don't. There's not a whole lot of people that I actively track down to read stuff and collect based on the creator who have done stuff like that. And the ones who have, okay, well, good for you. Yeah. But I'm not going to spend money on it.
I respect it. So for those that are coming in a little late, I'm actually sitting down with my man Chuck, and we are talking about moral dilemmas that we as comic book collectors may encounter as we buy and sell comics and deal with people in the comic book community. One of the questions that I have for you, Chuck, and I am going to wrap up here because we are going a little long, and that was me going just too deep a couple of times. But what are your thoughts to that very point of people online that just openly bash other people on social media? And I'm not necessarily talking about people that are like, this is my point of view, this is my perspective. I'm talking about people that use profanity, they use personal attacks because they happen to disagree with something that someone says, whether that's right or wrong, that what the person said. What are your thoughts on the trolling and on the bashing that we see oftentimes on Twitter? I'm not a huge fan of that platform, but what are your thoughts there?
I think, I appreciate people's right to free speech.
Yes.
But, and someone teaches the Constitution, you've got it, but you also have the after effects of the speech. And to me, I think some of these people would be better, at least from a financial standpoint, maybe to think twice before you hit send. And to pause and go, okay, is this worth the potential reputation damage and, issues that you might have? Because, maybe it won't damage you today, but if you produce some art, yes, exactly, John. That's why I used him as an example. Exactly.
That was a safe way to go, right?
Yeah, that was one I feel fairly confident on that one. But, it's kind of like the guy who was doing the art for, Immortal Hulk. I mean, and some of the other stuff he published, everyone looked at it and went, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
I finished my run on Immortal Hulk. I love it. Probably not going to get anything else of his.
Yeah.
Now, his art was not the reason I was buying the book. That was Al Ewing's writing.
Yep.
So, it's not a huge sacrifice, but, you heard Ewing and you heard Marvel say, no, we're done. We're done with you. Thank you.
Yep.
And to me, that's where you've got to understand the difference between I have the right to say something versus whether or not I should say something.
Yeah. I think the other thing with that situation, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't just one thing that he did. Like, he repeatedly did things after being spoken to, which again is a different kind of thing. Like, everyone has a past. Everybody makes mistakes. But in the present day, what are you doing? Are you doing the same thing over and over and poking the bear? Okay, now you have to pay the price, right? There is a consequence to that action. I think it's important for people to understand that you're not saying, hey, you messed up once, you're done. He had multiple shots on goal and just did bad stuff.
Yeah, it's bad when your writer calls you out online. And
Al Ewing was like, nope, not me.
Al Ewing was like, I'm not going to work with this person ever again. And and that was a headshot to me going, well, okay, so there's really something there. This is not just, we're not sure you placed the head in the wrong place to get the word you got. No, this is something a little bit more serious. And
well,
but I think
go ahead.
But I think we all have to think about that, and you with your YouTube channel, and I know you've talked about it, it's you got to be aware. You talk about the reputation. Your reputation travels with you.
Yes, it does.
You got your name.
Because like people will never say Regie didn't respond. Like everybody knows I respond. You might not like what I say, but you will get a response, because I just think that that's the right thing to do. But, these moral dilemmas are just interesting things because each one of you has touched on something a little bit different and a little similar to one another. And it's fascinating because in my opinion, there are just a lot of moral dilemmas that we encounter. And the question is, how do you navigate them? How do you behave, to Alan's point, when no one's watching, right? When the cameras are off and no one's paying attention, how do you treat that antique dealer or that private seller that you happen to be working with? Go ahead, brother.
Well, I was going to say, it reminds me of that episode of The Good Place where, they were trying to look at how people accumulate sin and can you lead the blameless life? And they say, well, if you buy, this nice, vegetarian, homemade latte thing, but you're actually accruing sin points because you damage the environment. So we've got to understand all the different, trade-offs within those moral dilemmas and, try to navigate it the best you can. And
at the end of the day, that's all that we can do, right?
Yeah.
Try the best that we can, because I don't know that any of us are going to get 100% right. I mean, heck, you took advantage of a guy for some $2 Men in Black. I don't know what to think of you now.
I trust me. If you saw what he charged me for that Death in the Family Batman, you might be on my side.
All right, man. So as I get ready to wrap up here, Chuck, where can people find you on the social media?
So I'm Chuck Hensey over at Instagram. So that's where you can find me.
Chuck, you are always an enjoyable guest. I want to thank you for coming on, man. You cited some wonderful examples. Again, I never quite know where you guys are going to go with this stuff, but I'm always pleasantly surprised at the end when you guys just make these wonderful points. Thank you for helping make the show, I think, a good show. So I definitely appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up. And again, as a reminder, if you missed part of this show, go back and watch it from the top, or you can wait for the podcast to actually come out. Again, it's going to be released on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on your favorite podcasting platform. I want to thank each and every one of my guests for showing up and honestly showing up and delivering. Each and every one of them did a really fantastic job. So I want to acknowledge each and every one of them. And again, shout out to the winner of the short box giveaway for the $100 credit. As a reminder, this is a giveaway that we do every single month. Every single month, Short Boxed sponsors 2 videos on the channel. One of them is an opportunity to win the $100 credit, and to enter, all you have to do is to comment on the video, and then I randomly pull a name from the comment section, and we award the $100 credit for somebody to be able to use on the Short Boxed app. So shout out to those guys again. Shout out to everybody. Almost 70 or so of you that commented on the video. I absolutely appreciate that. Stay tuned, because there is another video that is going to be coming out from the channel this week, and it is a CGC unboxing. So I think that you guys will enjoy that one. And as always, if you all need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.